Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Checkmate podcast. My name is Keenan.
I'm Kevin.
What's going on? I'm Chris.
And I'm Mark.
We're here with Mark, our first guest, episode 2. As we mentioned in the intro podcast or in the introduction video, that's on our Instagram, all social media, YouTube. This podcast, we want to invite people in that are already within the KMK family, and so we could give them the ability to come in and talk a little bit about themselves, and we can all kind of learn a little bit more about each other within a similar environment. Yep. So, welcome, Mark. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You know, we're super excited for you to be on.
Very excited.
It's been a work in progress, but we're finally here sitting down. So,
Mark, let's go.
So if you want to tell us about yourself.
Love to help you out, guys.
Thank you, Mark.
know that.
Appreciate it. So we're going to rifle off some questions. I know Kev was super pumped about brainstorming some questions for you.
Well, Mark, do you want to start off?
Yeah, hold on. I get the first.
We want a little bit of an intro.
Let's go. Stump me.
All right. So I did listen to the first episode of Checkmate.
Thank you.
I was very impressed. Mm-hmm. I'm always very impressed with you guys. You're doing a tremendous job. But I want to know what and why you're doing it. Like, what's your purpose? What's your why?
Who wants to take that one?
What's your why?
KMK, why don't we hear it?
Yeah, let's start with KMK then, man.
All right. Well, what's my why? I mean, me personally, I know everyone could have maybe a different opinion. My reason for doing this podcast is because, people like Mark and, other people that we'll have on the show, the mentorship that they give me has really changed my life. And, I feel like life is all about, helping people and making people better. And, that's what these people really do for me personally. So I just want to help, share them and share their story and help share success just like they've done for me and give people a platform to really, showcase some of the stuff that, is really going on, but people don't see behind the scenes. And I think it's, such a great tool to have. And I feel like we should do more of this and just kind of share, it's all about sharing and growing together. So, that's my why for any type of podcast.
Awesome.
I mean, I guess I'll just to piggyback off what you were saying. I mean, for me, it's kind of similar. My why is, I think there's so much knowledge that one can learn just from interacting with other people. So for me, I like connecting with new people. I like just having conversations because, one, you're building a relationship, and relationships to me are just, extremely important. And two, I mean, you could always learn something. You learn something new every day, right? And I mean, it's true. So for me, it's a great way for all of us as friends to talk with other people who are involved in KMK, who end up actually becoming, somewhat of a family because we're all here so much. Mm-hmm. So, it makes it that much more fulfilling, I think. Yep. So that's kind of my why. Love it. If you want to.
Christopher?
My why, I'm a younger guy. I'm the youngest host on this podcast. I'm 22 years old. So I think being that young guy, I think for me, I just like to listen and share my experiences that I've gone through, but also listen to everyone else's. And that's why we brought you on.
Love it.
And I'd like to hear your situation and learn from you.
Yeah. So
does that answer your question? Is that
it does.
What's your why, Mark?
What's your why?
Oh, that's a great one. So the why that I would do something like this, I don't know if that's the right way to frame it.
Or why are you even okay, or why were you open and, so open to hopping on the podcast and the one supporting us? Why were you?
Great question. Yeah, so three real reasons. One, in my time here, I've watched you guys develop relationships with young people. I, too, really am focused on developing young folks and giving them the tools to be successful in life. And your commitment and consistent focus on those guys, it's really important. Right. And you do a great job. So it's kind of more of a gratitude thing for me to say thanks and to open up and allow – if there's anything I can give to you all or to anybody out there, I'd want to do that. So that's
awesome.
First big reason. Yeah. As we'll get into a little bit over my life, my goals have changed and my why in life has changed. But I like to tell people, my goal in life is to do as much good as I possibly can.
Yeah, we can definitely see that.
For as many people as I possibly can, as best as I possibly can. And that's kind of why I wake up every morning. So that's another piece of the why.
And just to piggyback on that, your life goals has changed. I mean, I feel like I've noticed that a lot. Are you taking the initiative to like go out and mentor people and like take approach and really go beyond and be like, hey, let me help you out about this. Even anyone who comes in the gym, you take your time, get to know them, get to hear their story. Even like the couple we trained today who just got done with their wedding, you're asking them questions, and that's just like spreading good around the world. I definitely see how your goals have changed in order to like bring good in the world and not just I want to make it in the business world kind of deal. But I definitely feel like you've made that shift, and like it's inspiring because like when I'm older I definitely want to make that shift. I feel like you hit a point where you reach your own success, so now it's about making other people successful, and you want to see other people do good and spreading good that way. So
right, because I think the older we get, the older anyone gets, the more wisdom they acquire, and it's great to obviously learn from your mistakes, and along the way, it becomes even more honorable, I guess, to share what you've learned through trial and error with other people. So for us as younger guys, when we're in here, we have a big emphasis on like positive affirmations and making sure that the kids that are coming and working out are in the right mindset. And I think it's kind of got a ladder effect, right? So for you, I mean, to us, you're always, someone we could reach out to if we have questions, or even when we were kind of formulating the whole like idea and backstory of this podcast. I mean, you were someone that we reached out to.
Oh yeah,
just for some advice.
And like, if people know his schedule, how busy he is, and how many calls he has to take, like he always calls. Like I remember talking about this. Hey, we're thinking about starting a podcast. He's like, all right, give me a call. I'll call you back in 2 minutes. And then we spoke like 45 minutes on the phone, and it was just like to have someone like that you could call at any time. Like that's the most priceless thing you could possibly have. So
for sure,
yeah.
Right, and for those who don't know you, want to kind of introduce yourself, kind of tell the people who you are and what you do.
Sure. So most people in town might know me as coach, whether it's girls lacrosse, little kid football, or even high school football. And that's where I probably get most of my self-definition as being a coach, someone who wants to be helping others. The reality is my day is I started a private equity firm 25 years ago in sustainability and investing in companies that make the world a better place. I've made probably 50 investments, some big things that if you Google, you probably figure out, in solar and wind, and in recycling, and in
like renewable energy.
All sustainability. The idea being, if I can find a business that can promote good, it has a positive feedback loop. So if every time a sale of a product happens, the world gets to be a better place.
Yeah, it's big.
A pretty cool thing. I didn't want to be a guy known for financing the 37th Burger King and killing people.
Yeah,
it just didn't feel right.
Yeah,
and when you get on that train, you work down in Wall Street. A lot of the motivations get kind of really focused on income and making money and things like that. And I felt like you could probably marry the two, do just fine, but also make the world a better place.
Now,
so that was it.
Did you know that at a young age? Like, hey, I don't only want to be successful in like finance and stuff, but I want to actually like do good. Like, did you always have that, or was that something that you developed as you got older and you got more mature and say like, okay, now I want to like do this with my life?
As you know, it's path dependency. You bump into people, you learn from people and things like that. So the short answer is that when I was 19 years old, I met my wife, Lisa. I was in college at the time. She was in college at a different college at the time. And I think as we started to get serious at that time, I wrote down on a piece of paper, I want to learn how to run a company from a financial perspective. And if I'm any good at it, I'll be in private equity. If I suck, I'll be a CFO.
Yeah.
She still has that piece
That's
of
sick.
paper.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's got to be
cool.
framed, right?
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that gave me direction. I don't really remember being overly focused on being, CEO of anything or owner of anything. I do remember really valuing freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
I do remember fear was a part of it too. You know, you don't want to be in a situation where you don't know where you're gonna or how you're gonna raise your family and things like that. So
Absolutely.
I do remember also not when I look back at it now, the young me, the 22-year-old me, had no clue about doing good that way. You know, I always cared about people.
Yeah.
That was kind of core to who I was. But I don't think I really understood doing good the way that I do now.
Yeah.
That came later in life, and it came through meeting my partner, guy who had co-founded Priceline.com. He and his wife were really forward-thinking in a lot of unusual ways and trying to save the environment. And they had made quite a bit of dough and been quite successful because they were co-founders of Priceline.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think the combination of his influence and his wife's influence on me was an eye-opening, you know, make the world a better place. You got to make the environment a better place. You got to treat people differently and things like that. But I remember being open to that at 20. I think I started working with him at 26 or 27.
Yeah.
I remember being open at that point in my career. So it did come early, but didn't.
But
I wasn't
not
born
right
with
away.
it.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't born with it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think me personally, I felt like the same thing. Like at first, you know, I'd be wrong to say I wasn't wanting, you know, the gym to be the most successful thing. But then I met like people like you know, other mentors I have, and I'm like, wow, look at the impact they have on people. Look how many lives they get better. And when I learned if you just try to focus on doing good, and I know that sounds super like, you know, obvious, but if you focus on just doing good and making people's like lives better, like all the, you know, financial success will come from that.
Totally agree.
But it didn't start off like me like that. I was just like, you know, I come from a sports background just like you, so it was like, you know, a business was more of like the sport. Like I played basketball, I wanted to get as good at the game of basketball as possible. So when I opened up a gym, I wanted to be, you know, the best gym owner as possible, and I just dove into it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't thinking like, let me help the world. Like, you know, I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't. But now, you know, year 3, I want to say like, you know, how many people could we help? What charities could we get involved in? You know, how could we make an impact on the Fairfield community and make everyone's lives better? So that happened to me, but that I could definitely see how you.
Listen, I'm not totally sure that you didn't just describe the secret of success in a nutshell, which is you got to figure out how to help others, and it comes back to you 10 times more.
Yeah.
So we have.
It could be the case.
So as you know, we have what we call our a checkmate moment, right? Which is like your aha moment. Would you say that you had your first checkmate moment when, you know, you were 22 years old, when you realized that you wanted to get involved in something that made the world a better place? Or was there a moment leading up to that decision that you made where the light went off and you were like, okay, this is how I'm going to go about it?
Boy, so I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to take you guys through something I think is important. I don't know if I've ever shared this with anybody in this detail, but hopefully we can get through it quickly. I have a different opinion about whether anybody, when there's one moment or not one moment. I think progressive realization of your goals is the definition of success in that context. And so I really, very early on in my life, felt that process and building skills was like the focus, right? It wasn't about these moments or these attainment levels. Mm. It was really about like, okay, what do I want to learn next? How do I become better? How do I get better every day?
And then it'll just happen over time.
Right. Yeah, just and it was more like the pursuit was way more interesting than and I think that's probably athlete, 101.
Yeah, we were just talking about it with his son TJ about how to like fall in love with the process and not the destination. So I think that's
they say the journey is really what you remember. It's not the destination or where you end up. It's
everything
really
you go through.
Because because like once you reach the destination, then you're like, now what? And I know we've had that conversation before where it's like you should be happy with X, Y, and Z as a fly, just to get some middle of the days. But once you get there, you're like, okay, well I have X, so let me get X squared, and let me get something better, and it's a never-ending cycle.
Well, that's where the growth happens.
Yeah.
In the journey to the destination. I feel like that's where.
Here's another way to look at it, though. I've been around some super successful people, crazy successful people, and almost every single one of them, if they would have wrote down their goal, their that like single epiphany moment goal context, they would have undershot where the hell they went by like 1,000%, 10,000%. I'm very similar. I probably would have had some goal to be something very marginal, and it would have been huge at that point in time. But as a result of focusing on building skills, it's a progressive realization of a bunch of different goals, and you just keep getting at it. And I think what that does, interestingly, it doesn't cap you.
Right.
It's very likely that you would cap yourself.
Yeah.
You know, there's some big things that you can put out there. In business school, you learn about a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, BHAG. And I think if you're not careful, you could limit yourself if you don't put a process in place to successively reach your goals.
Right.
So the process there is, it's about being super consistent. It's about this concept of grit, being able to bounce back, being able to fight through and kind of get through. But all those things are character elements that you kind of build over time. And sports does that for you, right? You sports especially, and then as you move into college, if you're lucky enough to play, it's a different game, but it'll do that for you. So getting back to your question, Key, the epiphany moment for me that inspired me to want to be, like, to get after it, I was born with that. You guys are born with that.
I think so, too.
You know, the places, there's been 3 or 4 very important moments in my life that made me who I am today.
Right.
And lightly pivoted a boat that was headed the wrong direction into better currents.
Oh, yeah.
There's one of which is, you know, on the negative side, one of this, you know, I had an awesome dad, just terrific dude. You guys would like him. Not like me. You wouldn't expect me to say that. Not an athlete, not really into it, because he had a job when he was like 10. The guy was working, and he had to. Both my parents are first to go to college in their family. It's not lost on me what they had to do for me to have. I grew up very similar to the guys around here, but that's not how they grew up.
Yeah.
So it wasn't lost on me. So my dad, about, God, I'm going to get it wrong, it might be up to 9 years ago, passed away from lung cancer. And when he was diagnosed with lung cancer, he described it as a gift. That's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah.
It's a gift. I get this wonderful moment in time where I can reflect and get tighter with people, make sure I can take care of my affairs. But it was terminal. He was diagnosed. But that was the so many people would have got knocked down by that, I guess. I think I was inspired by him and his strength.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
so
he looked at it.
Yeah, so when you really ask, like, when did I become solely focused on others?
100%.
100%. Watching this guy who did not grow up easy, man. Suffered from a lot of things. He was bipolar and depressed, and at times, and growing up with a dad that fought through that. Yet he was loving, like the best of the best. Like,
sounds like a great
total
dude.
dog,
Yeah.
total dog.
Yeah.
So, and it was great, just great. But watching that, then I knew, like, okay, stop with the fast cars and thinking you're somebody because you got a business.
There's more
car.
meaning.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
just like immediately obvious. Like, in fact, I'll tell you a funnier story, which is again a moment along these lines. I used to. I want to be careful that I'm not talking over anybody's head that in your audience here, but so I made an investment in a company, and I thought I was a bigwig. And that company, I did a bunch of research. I was like on top of it. I was really early. Made an investment, bought this company, put a little bit of money into it, and got people to get behind it in a way, and I took the lead on it. And it required, when I made the investment, it required me to get on a plane Sunday night at right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and fly to Dublin, Ireland. We moved the company from...
I've been to Dublin. Dublin's awesome.
We moved
Dublin's
the
awesome.
company from the UK to Dublin because of a tax thing. Long story short is we had to have all of our board meetings there. So I'd fly Sunday, and I'd land in Dublin Monday morning at like 6 a.m. I'd get cleaned up, and we'd have a board meeting for 6 hours. I'd get back on the plane. I'd fly back and make home for dinner on Monday.
No way.
And, yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's a commitment. Sounds like a commitment.
But I'm doing this, and I'm thinking I'm all this, and blah, blah, blah. And Lisa was having TJ at the time. And there was like a medical, little health scare. And I was reading this book. And the book was about a CEO from KPMG who had terminal brain cancer, 3 months to live. He wrote this book. So I'm reading the book, and he draws these circles. And he has a circle in the middle, writes family. On the outside, it's like friends. On the outside, it's like business associates, and it's just getting on and on. And he wanted to say bye to everybody. Right. But he figured out the math that if he paid attention only to the outer ring, he had no time for the inner ring.
Yeah.
So here I am jumping on this stupid-ass plane. My wife needs me home. I'm on Sunday, and I cried the whole way to Dublin. 6 hours reading this book. And said, what in hell am I doing? And I rearranged a bunch of stuff and really got focused on that. So the short answer is, the epiphany moment is about being present.
Right.
Yep.
It's about family first. It's about being there for others. And the focus on building yourself the best you can to progressively realize your goals.
Love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great.
It's really great.
Those are those moments. And you'll have them. You probably already have.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's just life in general, like we're all going to have, and we've had these moments that shape who we are as people, and I think that's a blessing in life, and it's great. It's great.
Totally agree.
Do you want to ask one of the?
We've got a couple questions, but something that just stuck was when you were talking about how you didn't want to necessarily be the guy who helped fund a Burger King and distribute food that would essentially kill people, that was unhealthy. And it made me think, you focus heavily on obviously your own health and fitness and wellness. How important is the food that you eat? Is that of any importance to you, or is kind of coming into the gym and just staying active, does that lay higher on that hierarchy of importance to you?
So in my job, I do a lot of deep research. That's how I get my investment ideas. And it's always in sustainability. And reimagining the food system was something I worked on about 12 years ago, maybe 15. And my partner and I got really deep in it. My partner specifically backed a movie called Fed Up. You may have seen it. It's on documentary. It's about the sugar and sugar content in food and why and how it is. And how, in essence, a profit-driven industry, low cost, driving cost, and removing the fat from our food had to be replaced with some taste. So it was replaced with sugar. And what you find out when you read that study is basically the industry got us all addicted to sugar, whether they realize it or not. And sugar is a really, really dangerous substance in our food system, overused, and pretty scary when you start to think about mental wellness and your physical health. So from that point, I started to get a little freaked out about the food system and started to pay attention to it a little bit more disciplined. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't eat candy like the rest of us, but it does mean that over...
Me, Keenan.
Yeah.
See this guy.
He's got a sweet tooth over here.
So it does mean that I'm paying a lot more attention to how food is interacting into our health and our wellness.
Yeah.
So I'm careful.
And so, one big thing that, I always ask you in terms of business and how to grow and stuff, what do you look for if you're investing in a company in the partner? Because I always hear you say invest in the people, not in the business and idea.
Question.
So what do you look for? Is there a checklist that you go for? Do you need to spend time with them? Just walk us through the process before you invest with anyone and or who you invest with, stuff like that.
It's interesting. Talent assessment is actually like coaching football or whatnot. It's something you do have to kind of build it up through an experience set. Mm-hmm. And I will say the word that I use a lot is someone backable. I actually, in my own life, pay a lot more attention to it as are they worth spending time with.
Yeah, yeah.
So I use backable not just in an investment context, but like you guys are backable. Meaning, like I think it's a very worthy pursuit to spend time with you guys. You're good people. You do good things.
Appreciate it.
So backable. Getting back to it, the number one most important thing is, does the partner have a high degree of integrity, high character? Can you predict the way they'll act under many situations? Like, are they the kind of person that you know probably what kind of dog they'd already have? You can predict it. You can predict that they're married with great kids. You know, you can predict it. So are they predictable, consistent, high character, high integrity folks that you can trust?
And I mean, just to piggyback on that, I mean, some people have only seen others in like positive situations where there's no conflict. Right. So you think you might know someone, but then a conflict happens. You're like, oh my God, why is this person acting like
I've
this?
Never seen this side.
I've never seen this side. So like, I feel like in order to, for me now, I mean, in order to like do business with someone, I need to see their dark side, good side. I need to see them at all times, and I need to like spend time around them. Like definitely like what you said, I need to enjoy being around them. I'm not going to do business with anyone I don't enjoy being around. You know, like I love being around you guys. That's why, you know, we do business together. So, you know, that's, I think those are great aspects to
finding joy in partnership and relationships is super important, whether it's, you know, with your significant other or with your business partner or with your friend. But you do have to find that joy. And by the way, the reason that becomes most important is there are very hard times in life.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And we all go through them.
We all go through them.
I'll mention one that I learned a lot about all of you guys, COVID. So we happen to be sitting here, and Kevin's so damn humble, he wouldn't even want to bring it up. But today is a 2-year anniversary.
Yeah.
2-year anniversary of starting this place. This place, he starts out with like 2 rooms over here, and like, I mean, it's just amazing.
Just posted a video today on it, right?
It's
The
just
expansions
amazing.
and everything.
Yeah. So watching what and how you approached your business and the risks that you were taking your people during COVID, and how you treated your members or the people that look, I call them members in your community. There was no obstacles. You were very respectful of what the community was going through. You weren't breaking rules. You were honoring rules. You were doing things safely. Yeah. You were professional. And so, like, those were hard times, man. There's not a lot of people that made it through it.
I mean, I think it was just came natural. Like, you know, Keenan was one of those people. It's like I didn't even feel like I was training Keenan because I just had so much fun. You know what I'm saying? And then he, you know, became my best friend after. So it was just like, you know, I think you gotta another thing with business. You got to do something that you enjoy doing, because the reason, you know, Chris and I can stay here for 12 hours a day is because like it doesn't even feel like work. It just like zooms by, and then we're like, oh, it's time to go. It's like, oh, is it time to go? Like I'm having a great time, and we're here from 6 a.m. to 8. You know, so it's like, you know, I think that's huge too. So
it's funny. I used to say to people, you know, you either live to work or work to live. Mm-hmm. And I think when you live to work, you get it right. But there are people that want to work to live, you know, just put their time in and go home and kind of sponsor their lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
But it's hard to put a lot of hours and passion stuff if you don't love it.
Right. I got a question that I'm thinking of. So, did you have like a vision for your life? Because I know how you talked about how your goals changed when you were older. Did you sit down and kind of manifest, okay, here's what I want to do in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, here's how my goals shift, and then like, you know, towards the end of my life, you know, I want to focus on this? Because like I've actually thought about that, where it's like, you know, I want to make the business as big as possible in the 20s, and then like 30s, you know, start a family, and then 40s start, you know, creating an organization that helps people, and like that's how I kind of like think in the back of my mind. Like spend some time thinking about that. Do you is that something that you do, like plan out your whole life kind of deal?
I do, but you know, I don't. What I found early on in life is when I got too specific and I didn't focus on that I capped out. Like I capped out where I would go instead of just saying, why not me? You know, like why not? Right. And then I achieved way faster. I will say 2 things to that though. So I did always think my career started when I was 35. Right. I had an unusual approach there. Many people were rushing, trying to jump jobs, get higher up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to run a business from a financial perspective. And I'm going to grab these skills, I'm going to get all these experiences, and I'm going to be uniquely qualified to do something by 35. and then I'll apply it. I'll either invest in myself or something. I'll own a business or whole. And again, the funny part about that is like a lot of my success happened when I was 30, not 35. And I'm not saying that to be kind of the guy, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm more saying that like the process that I put into place had a true north, but it didn't have any time limit on it.
Right.
So I was okay with it being a little short. So you got to be more patient than that.
Yeah, more patient, like staying in the moment. Yeah,
Because I feel like it could be limiting. It could be limiting in a way.
It really can be.
When you put these time constraints on yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to plan and strategize and manifest, but I think it's got to be somewhat balanced, because if it's not balanced, I mean, you're putting a lot more unnecessary stress and pressure on yourself, which I don't think helps at all.
And I think society does that a lot now, like, saying, you should be married by this age, you should be living in a house at this age, and, it gives people a lot of anxiety by saying, oh, wait, I'm not at that age, I'm not qualifying what everyone else is doing at this moment. You think there's something wrong with you or something of that nature.
So take away the scale, but keep the direction. So that's my one word of advice. Take away the scale. Like, don't measure every minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep the direction and be intentional. Have a why.
Yeah.
So getting back to that, so yes, right now, actually, contrary, if I didn't, give you a background on that early part of my career, contrary to that, I do have a life plan. But in the middle of a circle, and I have a picture from 2015, in the middle of the circle it says evocateur, to support and to evoke and to help people find their mission in life, in essence. Not where I think they should be, but where they can want to be, but just help give them the tools and support and kind of coach it out. And off that circle, I have all the things that I wanted to do and I was doing. So coaching. At that time, I was coaching at Prep, football there. But I coach, I still involve it. You guys know I'm a coach in essence in a lot of different ways. I wanted to teach. I taught a course and I still guest lecture at Columbia and at Yale. And at USC, again, to connect to people, right? I sit on boards. I invest in public or private companies. I will get involved in not-for-profit projects outside of that. But this is my platform. This is the way that I express that. In essence, that mission of how can I do as much good as I possibly can? Yeah. And I want to coach. So actually, it's kind of funny. One of my advantages in my investment business is that I don't just give money, I give coaching. So I coach with capital. And when I coach with capital, it accelerates the outcomes, ideally. And it has in the past a couple times. It's worked.
Now, what about like maybe spreading yourself too thin because you invest in a lot of companies? Do you try to say like, okay, I don't want to put my time and effort into that because it'll take away from other companies I invested in and stuff? Because I mean that's got to be hard because you got a family, you coach, you do different investments. Is there a point? Balance. Yeah, is there a point where you say like, okay, I can't take on too much, so I don't want to give that much of my time because my time is precious. I'd rather do X, Y, and Z with it, or
so that's called. I'll use the word being discerning. Very important. There's a great book that I use for business, but I think at business school they recommend everybody read it. The Art of War. It's fantastic for business. One of the major points in The Art of War is don't fight multiple battles on different fronts. Fight one battle on the front that you have an advantage. Yep. So that's where the reason I use that is like you do have to be discerning. You do have to focus your time. What you don't see or hear is, I have folks that I work with, but every one of the companies I'm investing in has 3 of you guys running it that care way more about it, and I can sleep at night. So it's not all consuming. So I do try to maintain leverage, and I've been successful as I've gotten older doing that. Early days, I was trying to do everything, and what I found there, though, is I wasn't really helping anybody if I was doing everything. I was actually taking away their moments. Yeah. Right. So that was a shift. So the short answer is, yes, balance is important. It's attainable, but you have to be discerning.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But there are a lot of hours in the day.
It's very true.
I want to just throw in, so Mark had actually recommended a really, really good documentary for me to go and watch. And I think you had gone and watched
What,
it.
the Jonah Hill?
The Jonah Hill
I love it.
documentary.
Yep.
Yeah, what was it?
Stutz.
Stutz.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know, I don't know how to pronounce it. But for those of you who are watching or listening, I highly recommend. I'm sure Mark highly recommends, and Kev, all of us, Chris.
Yeah.
Stutz, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Look it up on Netflix. It's more focused on mindset, and it incorporates therapy. And basically, it's about Jonah Hill, who's a very profound and popular actor. He interviews his therapist, and supposedly this therapist is a world-renowned therapist. Jonah Hill has been seeing him for years and years upon years upon years. Has helped him get through a lot of traumatic moments in his life, and it's actually super clever. And I think that the documentary in itself, it's genius how he structured it, because he's essentially interviewing his therapist, who interviews him on the daily, who talks to him on a daily about where he's at mentally. And one thing that, Kevin, Chris, and Mark, and all the trainers here at KMK, they emphasize is mental strength and being positive. And when Mark, I want you to talk a little bit more about it, but when you had recommended that to me, I went back and I was like, cool, I'm a big advocate for mental coaches or therapists, or just having someone in your corner that you go and talk to outside of your immediate family, right? Someone who has an unbiased opinion, because I can go and talk to, my brother or some of my best friends, but their opinion and some of their feedback, it's always going to be skewed. It's always going to be biased. So, having someone like Mark around, or a mentor, it's super important, and there's a big emphasis on mental strength within KMK. So my question is, considering that documentary, do you want to talk a little bit more about the importance of being mentally aware when it comes to, obviously, your personal life, but also as an athlete for some of these kids?
Right on. For sure. So what I found, and I'm not totally sure that I have done enough work to get to the final understanding for me on this stuff, but I found a lot of times we're all commonly skilled, meaning the exceptional doesn't necessarily mean you had ridiculous genetics in something. It does in some things. Right. What I find more often is the case is that people run into obstacles and they don't reach their fullest potential. And so if you're really focused, and I think you guys know this about me as I am, human performance, if you're really focused at the human performance level, which is all these athletes, young people coming through here, folks we know, even what Checkmate really may be about at the end of the day, if you're really focused on that, you can start to see that mental health is an obstacle, that many people face it. Mindset is an obstacle for those that don't suffer from a mental health issue but still have to have the right mindset. Yeah. And these obstacles pop up. It's funny, I had a epiphany moment different in human performance where I was asked to do a deadlift and thought, I'm perfectly strong, I can do this deadlift. And I grabbed a bar and I couldn't do an element of the deadlift. And it wasn't my strength that was the issue, it was my hip. Right. Like I literally didn't have the flexibility in my hip. Until I cured that, I wasn't going to be able to do the deadlift at the level that I wanted to. And I just always felt like, wow, removing obstacles is like super important in human performance. Right. So start there, right? So then you start to realize that there's a whole model of interrelated elements where the mind is playing tricks on you a little bit. You have negative self-talk. I can't do that, or that guy's better. Comparison is the root of all evil, comparing. Right. But you just go through this, and you just realize when you become my age, and you've just been around so many people, young people trying to perform, folks at the highest levels of business trying to perform, every obstacle comes down to like emotional intelligence, mental framework stuff.
Yeah.
It's never physical. It's never a skill issue.
Yeah, like
it's just never.
Mark,
That's not the limit.
I mean, we always talk about how, even in that documentary, like, the therapist goes, 88% of the people who are depressed aren't physically active. So, like, moving your body, like pushing yourself through challenges, like if you are anxious, like if you do that, that'll make you less anxious. And then you're like, oh, why was I so anxious after I just crushed this, really, really hard workout or anything like that. So that's, I think, the biggest gift of, like working out, and why, Mark and I work out so much, like all the time, like 2 days.
For those
sometimes.
of you guys who don't know, Mark comes to the gym at least 2 to 3 times a day.
Working out with all of us. But,
and works the hardest out of anyone. in
yeah,
the gym.
like literally. But I mean, I think it's just like, it's all mental. It's just like, you do your work and then you come to the gym and then you get like a mental boost from it. Like we don't even I would work out even if I was 500 pounds, didn't look good. It's not for the aesthetics, not for that. It's just like for a mental health benefit.
Right, that feel good.
Yeah, it's feel good. It releases endorphins. It's science. It's like, that's the biggest thing that I took away from that documentary. And that was like on the pyramid, the 3 pyramids.
The life force.
Yeah.
The life force. It was like the first thing that's like a stable base is like physical activity, eating healthy, like all that stuff. So, if you're depressed, that's the first thing to start.
You were going to ask a question, I think, when we talked about this a little bit up front. It's like, what's a routine all about? My routine all about?
Yeah, morning routine.
And what you just said, Kevin, really puts us into the right mindset. But there's a lot of guys that we share in common that are my age that we share a lot of ideas. Nick Morris being one, and we really share content and try to understand what's a great routine and things like that. And so getting back to mindset, if at the end of the day, mindset is probably the biggest lever that you have, because again, skill's not going to matter, meaning we're all going to work hard enough to get the skill up to speed and things like that. Mindset. Good habits lead to good outcomes. And like getting a good habit, getting habitual about living the right lifestyle turns out to have real big benefits. In my own life, even let's go back before meeting you guys and spending a bit of time at KMK, I put a lot of time into fitness, trained poorly at times, thinking I was training great, ate, I thought I was eating clean, wasn't eating clean, and, all these things for the wrong reasons. And it's funny because I think my goal then, as funny as it sounds, being Italian, was just to be able to eat anything I wanted to eat, work out so I can eat more.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I really connected with the reason why what was the routine that I needed to have to get what now is my reason for working out is for wellness, like real true wellness,
and
like living a fullest life.
And like, we talked about it on the first episode, Keenan, is like, when, we work out early in the morning and like we push ourselves really, really, really hard, we know that, okay, we're going to have obstacles throughout the day, but I already did my first obstacle. It's kind of like making your bed in the morning. Like I started the day off good. Anything that comes to it, like I just, this weight almost dropped on my chest, but I did it. I can handle someone yelling at me for the phone that I have no control over. I can like be relaxed about that.
And that all kind of leads back to mindset, right? And getting something that's hard, or what some people save until the end of the day, getting it right out of the way first, and going and maxing out your bench or your squat, on a Monday morning at 5 a.m., starting the week off with something that's uber super challenging.
Right.
Like actually, so what I do now, ever since Chris and I did and Mark did Squattober, which was like a workout challenge for the month of October. From that point on, I was like, I want to challenge myself and make that challenge be something different every single month. So I did something for October, November, December. It's Bench-Cember. Shout out to Bench-Cember. So go check that out on Instagram. Kudos to you, though, for really taking the time and being committed and every day at noon posting the new workout for the next day. Like, that's super impressive, so respect for that. But what I've been doing, because I haven't been the best friend in doing, Bench-Cember,